Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. As always, I'm your host, Stuart Cranes. We have another amazing guest for you this week, but before I introduce him, please be sure to like and subscribe. Hit that little bell icon wherever you are catching this show. We want to make sure that as this show transitions into multiple episodes a week, you are getting updates on all of the amazing guests and messages that we have in store for you. But to jump right in and introduce this week's guest, he is somebody that is a mover and shaker in the Tampa Bay, Florida area. He is somebody that has been named to numerous 40 under 40 lists. He is a leader in the construction industry and has built his own business from the ground up, Tomco Solutions. And I am super excited to invite Tommy Whitehead on the show. Tommy, thank you for being here today.
Stu, it's absolutely my pleasure. It's always great to see something pop up in my inbox and ask for a podcast interview. I love getting out and meeting new people.
Yeah, no, and we wanted to have you on the show. My show is your inside track to success, as you know, and you're coming out with a book, Building Success, a toolbox for coming out on top. So obviously a lot of synergy there. I would love to hear a bit of the backstory for how and why you got into the construction industry. I feel like with all of the stuff we see on Instagram, all the stuff we see on social media, people don't think of the construction industry as a business to get into or a career path these days. So I'd love to hear a bit more about your journey and we'll go from there.
Sure. Well, let me start with this. You talk about people not getting in the construction industry, and you're right. There was a whole generation told, go to college. You're going to make six
Mhm.
figures. You'll do so much better. Well, a lot of us listen to that. Too many of us listen to that. Not enough people went into the trades. We are losing 40% of the construction workforce in
Wow.
5 or 6 years. We do not have enough people to replace them. Right now, a plumber can bill at the same rate as an average attorney.
Wow.
That is insane. So it is an industry that is in desperate need of labor. If we think that the housing market is difficult now, the materials aren't going to be what we're worried about in 5 years. It's going to be labor to actually build. Build times will increase, costs will increase, and we're going down a tricky path. So for all those young individuals listening today, the trade path, college is good, and I went to
Mhm.
college. But college is great, but the trade path is also an excellent opportunity to make a lasting mark by literally constructing the next generation of our society. So, that's my little spiff on the track of the construction industry. But to answer your question, I got into construction by accident. I used to be a director of finance and accounting. That would have been last 12-ish years ago, something like that. So it was during near the time of the Great Recession. We also had the BP oil spill here in the Gulf of Mexico. It killed the hospitality industry. Unfortunately, I was downsized. They had to significantly reduce the staff. I was one of the higher paid senior members of the staff at the time. So they of course they get bang for their buck by letting go higher paid individuals. Just in a few weeks, or maybe it was a few months, it wasn't that long, a colleague from a prior resort gave me a call and says, "Hey, I see that you're looking for a job." He's like, "We worked well together." And we had on a construction project. I was doing the accounting part and he was doing the project management part. But he says, "Hey, I see we worked very well together. I can teach you anything you need to know about construction. You should come interview. You'd be a great project manager." Landed the job. That was for a multi-billion-dollar company. It was a startup that was buying and flipping houses for rent. And I went
Wow.
through managing or attached to about 3,000 projects in that short period of just a few years. And so the experience level of a typical worker doesn't usually touch that number of jobs. It's very unusual to have that many touch points on so many houses all over the country. And so, yeah, I kind of got thrust into it and then realized I was really good with project management. And so then I went down the construction path myself. And that was my second career in my late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah, I think it's amazing how people go into one type of work thinking it's going to be their forever career and life happens, some type of event occurs and boom, we pivot and then it ends up becoming our life's work. And
Absolutely.
you have obviously received a lot of accolades for the work that you do with Tomco Solutions. What do you feel like it is about the work ethic involved? What are your tips and tricks for people to not necessarily chase the accolades, but do put in the work that does get recognized, that does have people looking to you for opportunities?
Well, you want to stop going into any meeting thinking, what's in it for me?
Hmm.
That's a bad mentality. I kind of found this through a little bit of tragedy. So 2020, as most of us experienced, my business took a huge dive. My mom was diagnosed with cancer. She's since passed a few years past that. I put myself into nonprofit work almost as a way of coping. Both of I was kind of mourning a mother and mourning a loss of a business at the same time. And the business didn't die. Obviously, it came back, but at the time, it didn't feel that way. So I put myself into small nonprofits that could never, ever afford my level of experience, especially with a background in accounting, but event management and construction and project management in a wide variety. So I picked those teeny little bootstrap type nonprofits to try to give help to. And I just spent my time into raising money and helping the community. That started turning into many, many introductions to many people all the way up to I made a connection that landed in a $30,000 donation of shoes to a center that helps refugees and orphan children. And so I didn't receive anything from that. That wasn't what I was looking for. I was funneling, I was coping with a lot of loss. And it turned out that giving myself over to nonprofit was very self-fulfilling, very therapeutic, and exceptionally good for business as well. Giving back to your community will come back to you. And that's how I've gotten so many awards, so many accolades, so many news interviews is just one step at a time, just doing good to do good. And then people see that and they want to do business with you, or they go out of their way to find business for you, even if you don't ask. But I try to give back, not only philanthropically, but I also like to give back by making connections to other businesses. Maybe introducing this IT company to this restaurant. I'm not in IT, I'm not in food and beverage, but maybe they need to know each other for some reason. And I introduce them and it's a match made in heaven for whatever reason. I don't expect anything from that. But then all of a sudden, the IT guy is walking into a new facility to wire and their contractor walked out and I get an introduction. Or the restaurant is moving locations and they need construction work and I get an introduction. Those kinds of things come back. So it's a little hippy dippy, but one of those universal provide. But if you genuinely put yourself out, and the key word is genuinely put yourself out there, try to help and support others, they do step up and help to support you.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to work in the baseball industry, and I feel like I'm hearing you say what I was always told. It's not only who you know, but it's what people can say about you, especially when you're not in the room to hear it.
Mhm.
Do you feel like there are any other instances where the relationships that you've created on your journey have paid dividends in ways that you never could have anticipated?
I do. So this just popped up today. It's good timing. I had
Love
an
it.
invitation to speak at a housing authority board meeting, which that's pretty cool right there.
Yeah.
Um, I can't go to that now because the mayor of St. Pete has requested me at a roundtable discussion, and I got an invite. And I was just a poor kid, I grew up real poor in Kathleen, Florida, in Central Florida,
Mhm.
and I've only been on this PR track and really heavy pushing my company for the last year. And all of a sudden now I get to choose. I have to choose between one of two incredible opportunities. And I never thought. So I had some people tell me, hey, Tommy, step back on this date and think this was the day you went from, oh, who's Tommy, to you got two amazing opportunities to speak. Which one do you choose? And so it's very humbling because I never thought I would be in this type of position. But it goes to show if you put yourself out there, try to give others, it does come back to you. It does work. I like seeing other people succeed.
Yeah.
I like helping other people build their own success. And that's a joy to me. It really is. And I think it shows, and I think people resonate with that, and that's why they go out of their way to try to help me.
Yeah. Yeah, and I wanted to touch on something you mentioned. You said it very quickly, but talking about not having a lot growing up, a rags to riches story, if you will. What is it about having more humble beginnings that you feel like set you up for the success that you're enjoying now?
It's another funny thing. Just before this interview, I was on the discussion with a career source company, and they help train individuals that are low income, and there's usually kids, they're usually 20 to 25 kind of range, and they're helping them train in a digital media program. And one of the things they want to say, well, you want to be careful with this and you want to be careful with that. And these kids are, 120% below area mean income. They're
Mhm.
lower income, and this is an opportunity for them to get a job, get trained. And I said, don't worry about that. I grew up that way. I understand. My very first suit was from Goodwill. That's the only thing we could afford.
Mhm.
My dad was there, but not super involved. He'd never put on a tie in his life, I don't think. I had to learn on the internet how to tie a tie. I lived in a mobile home, we had food insecurity. My senior year of high school, I skipped a year, I skipped my junior year in high school, did my senior year, did a full senior year and worked 45 hours a week so I could help bring food home. I
Wow.
know what it's like to be in those positions, and I know people had it way worse than I did. And so when I see somebody and I know that they're trying and they have that ambition, I can help them find nicer clothes. I can help them find a better job, but they've got to want it. They've got to
Mhm.
stop blaming society, stop blaming their parents, stop blaming whatever else, and do what I did. You got to force yourself to think bigger, think better, and you will become better if you give yourself over to it and you try. So to go back to your original question, the humility that I have is because I have this lingering fear, and I think it'll be with me for the rest of my life that I could go back to be in that spot at any time. Now, the likelihood of something being pulled out underneath me is unlikely, but I've talked to people that had staff of 1,000 and now managing 11 after COVID.
Wow.
That
Yeah.
very successful people having everything pulled away from them through nothing that they did. So I always think about that. So I stay humble. I'm not the kind of guy that wants the huge roadster sports car. I don't want this fancy stuff. It's just not my personality. And I have opportunities and exposure to a lot of things, but it's just I still feel like, hey, having going fishing on the pier and sneaking a little bit of booze out so you have an enjoyable day. I don't want to say fishing, it's feeding. I feed the fish because I never catch anything. But keeping some of those humble beginnings is just who I am, and it's outstanding. And I think it makes me approachable to people because if you grew up in a mobile home and flip flops like I did, or if you grew up with a silver spoon in your mouth, if you treat people with respect, you're cool by me.
Yeah, and I know that you and I are just getting to know each other, but I feel like you exude a lot of humility. You obviously know your stuff, or you wouldn't be in the position you are now with your business and with this book coming out. But it's also keeping that level of groundedness and who you are and what you authentically want, and not chasing the Maserati or whatever you see on
Yeah.
Instagram that, I think keeps us both hungry and focused and humble is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, I'm always looking for the next opportunity, the next hard work to do. I sometimes don't even slow down to like revel in my success to be like, wow, this is kind of cool what I've done. My thought process is, oh my gosh, I raised $10,000. It should have been 12.
Mhm.
My thought process is I could have put in 2 more hours this week and gotten so much more done. I always think, what if, what if, what if? I do need to slow down sometimes and think, wow, this is some cool stuff I've done. But I like to try to be motivational to other people and to realize that, hey, you can
Mhm.
do this too. I didn't have anything special. My school wasn't paid for, my car wasn't paid for. I didn't get my parents taking care of things. They didn't have the means to do that, and I still managed to do what I'm doing today. And if I can do it, then everybody else can too. But you have to dedicate yourself to saying you want something more.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like in that way you are leading by example, so I wanna acknowledge you for that.
Well, thank
And
you.
oh, of course, and just to pivot briefly, Tommy, the book coming out is Building Success. It is the a toolbox for coming out on top. Do you have it broken out into individual tools that people can use for creating success in their life, or what are the biggest takeaways that people need to know for creating success?
So I have a bunch of creative chapters in it. And yes, it's kind of broken down into little mini stories throughout my life and ways that I used those to understand who I was, to be self-aware, and then what I took away and learned from that and my failures. And that's really important because
Mhm.
if you go to my LinkedIn, you'll see a lot of cool things that I do. You haven't seen all the failures, man. There were a lot of them to get to where I am today. But my book starts out with the very first chapter that says the chapter title is My Backpack Told Me I Was Poor. I
Wow.
grew up in a poor area in a poor school in elementary school, but everybody was poor. That's just what it was. We all didn't have a lot of food. We didn't do field trips. We didn't do a lot of that things. We did little things, but we didn't do much. But everybody was in that situation, so it's just kind of a way of life. I went to a charter school in middle school, and it's like a private school, but it's free. And it was one of the first five in the state at the time in the 90s. And all of a sudden, we had uniforms. Okay, so we're all wearing the same thing, but then you notice people's backpacks, you notice their lunch boxes, and you notice their shoes. And you realize that you had the Walmart backpack, the clearance one, the one that was put on layaway by your parents. And you see somebody else walking in with a JanSport. And a JanSport doesn't sound like that big of a deal, right? But when you're, when you're trying to get a backpack for 12 or 15 bucks and a JanSport's 60, you got the rich kid backpack.
Yeah, I mean,
And
I have a kid, man. You don't have to tell me.
yeah, oh yeah, and I do too. And I know that things have gotten even more expensive and we have some means to take care of it. But didn't you, that was the first time I really realized, kids were talking about how they go to Disney every week. And I've been to Disney once my entire life. They're talking about the getting on a plane. I never even been on a plane. I didn't get on a plane until I was 15 years old, I believe. I barely had left the state before. It's a lot of those things that other kids just, I don't want to say took advantage. They didn't understand. They were kids,
Mhm.
but that they really didn't realize how fortunate they were compared to other people, other kids like myself. And they weren't mean. Most of them weren't mean or hateful about it. That's just their way of life. It was normal. But that is just a tool and a trip to, or a little tidbit there about how my book starts out. And it goes on to a bunch of other stuff about little successes and failures and how I became a disruptor and do things differently and give back to my community. And it's just a cool little quirky story about my life and tips and tricks. And there are things that can apply to anybody in any industry. It's not a HGTV, how to fix your outlet or house kind of book. So don't let my little hard hat helmet scare you away from that. It really is, I would say rags to riches, but you don't want to say riches in front of the IRS. They might come for you. Um, rags to middle income kind of book. uh, but it's just a stupid, funny, inspirational story, and I hope that people get something out of it and don't feel embarrassed about their failures. I was embarrassed by my failures for a long time, and now I'm like, it is what it is.
Yeah. You talked about the LinkedIn profile, how you have a lot of successes and we don't see the failures. I mean, that's
Mhm,
true for anybody. You look
mhm.
at my LinkedIn, you're only going to see the highlights. What are maybe one or two of some of the failures that in hindsight you're like, yeah, maybe that was a good thing that didn't work out? And what did that teach you?
I will tell you that after I lost my job in that first construction management company, they had stopped acquiring. It was coming. I got let go. I was terrified and ended up starting my own construction company with a partner. That didn't work out too well. I didn't get to know my partner well enough. It didn't make money for a year and a half. It was the catalyst for what I'm doing today. And so I'm not regretful of that in any way, shape, or form.
Mhm,
But not knowing my partner well enough and what his goals were
mhm,
drastically impacted my life, and that caused issues. And so, that's a little bit of a failure. I had gotten a successful construction company off the ground. I had sent, and funny that you mentioned, or that you repeat what I said about LinkedIn. I had sent a couple of emails on LinkedIn. I made one connection that was over $1 million in sales for a few years,
wow.
just by having the right script and explaining the problem and gaining their understanding. And so I had grown that business, but then I lost everything because he wanted to dissolve the business, and that's what happened. It got dissolved. And so practically overnight, I have to reinvent myself. Do I really want to be in construction anymore? Do I just want to go back to accounting? What am I going to do? And I decided to move forward, work harder, get my own license instead of working with somebody else, and make sure that I was wholly owned at that point. And so it was a massive failure. I built up a company with $1 million in revenue, and then I'm back down to zero, actually negative zero at this point. It was debt at this point. So it was like, okay, now I got to do this again. And then COVID hits, and it's the same thing. All your clients went away. It just decimated my business. And that was tragic. And then I had to think again and reflect again. Did I want to do this? Do I really want to be in construction? Um, and I found out ultimately putting my hands on drywall isn't my ideal situation, but helping other trade individuals realize their talents, being the communicator between the client, creating projects for the community is definitely my wheelhouse. That's where I live. When I can talk about affordable housing, when I can talk about using my means and my job to give back to my community, that's where I live and that's where I thrive. And my company has gotten more successful because I'm living in the area that I thrive in now instead of forcing myself to be in an area that I didn't care to be in.
Yeah. There's a really great book called Flow by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, and it sounds like part of your journey is finding your flow, what
Mhm.
works for you. Do you have any suggestions for folks on figuring out what is for them and what isn't for them as they're pursuing their own paths?
Sure. First of all, after reading my book, because you definitely got to read my book first, read 10x is easier than 2x. It's a very, very good book, and it's really one of those mind changer type books that says that you need to focus on what you're best at. 80% of your day is garbage that you don't need to do because you hate doing it and it drags you down. And it might be very important stuff. Don't get me wrong, like accounting was never a drag on my day, but most people accounting is the bane of their existence. You'll spend 10 times the amount of time that any other professional would on your accounting. That takes away so much time from you going your business. It takes away from the space that you love in your business. So you have to find what's the 20, what's the 30% that you love in your business, and why aren't you focusing on that? Because that's where you make the most and the greatest impact on what you can do for your business. And then the rest of it, you have to find help. And every entrepreneur, just like me, says I'm the only one that can do it. But you know what? You want to humble yourself. There were companies before you lived, there'll be companies after you die. Somebody else does know how to do it as well, but there's a lot of people that know how to do it way better than you. And the
Mhm.
second objection is I can never afford that. Well, if you are really good at sales and you could reclaim 20 hours a week from administration duties to be in sales, how much is that worth to you? I guarantee you that
Yeah.
20 hours of sales time is worth 5, 10, 20 times the amount that you would pay an administrative assistant, a fractional accountant, a bookkeeper, an attorney, whatever those SEO people, marketing. When you find that and say, hey, I got to have people take care of this and frees me up for my business, then your business starts to excel. And I had to do that. I've even had a colleague that says, oh, well, I want to have this social media thing, but I don't have the money for that. I'm like, do you have $100 a month? They're like, yeah. I'm like, well, stop trying to be perfect to exactly where you want to be. Invest $100 a month, get a few hours out of somebody to help it look better. And then you're better off than you were at the beginning of the month. And it's not where you want it to be, but that's okay. It's a constant evolution, including my business is a constant evolution of marketing professionals, SEO professionals, public relations individuals, all the way down to sales staff and construction. There's so much in the layers of my construction company before you even pick up a hammer. And so but you had to start small. I didn't start this way. I started really small with a credit card and trying to survive and got to where I'm at today. And you can do the same thing. Anybody really can, but stop putting barriers in front of yourself and start just trying to make small accomplishments. You don't need to have Beyonce's social media team. You can't afford it. Hell, I
Mhm.
can't afford it.
Mhm.
But can you afford a virtual assistant for a few hours a week or a month? Most people can.
Yeah, and I think what I'm hearing you say, and I want to double down on this for the entrepreneurs out there, a lot of it is about just getting energy moving in the direction that you need it to go. Whether, like you said, it's getting your social media going. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you do get to have something.
Mhm.
Obviously, things like taking care of your books. If you're in the construction industry, you need to be building,
Mhm.
quality structures for people to inhabit and work in. But all the other things can be optimized, they can be outsourced, they can be done maybe not perfectly, but in a way that gets things moving so that you actually create progress.
Mhm.
Is there anything else you feel like you'd add to that?
You gotta stop limiting yourself. You're always your number one enemy. You really are.
Mhm.
I've been in the same spot. I can't do this. I'm not qualified for this. I'm not qualified for that. Maybe I can land that project, but I don't know how to do that. Now, I don't mean to go way out and say, hey, today I'm going to build a skyscraper. That's not my
Sure.
wheelhouse. But can I handle the slightly bigger project? Can I handle the multifamily development? Well, yeah, I can handle it on a small scale. Why can't I do it on a big scale? The only thing that was holding me back was me. If you go in there and you know that you can do it, You have to convince other people that you can do it. You have to be positive. You have to recruit your team, get those professionals around you that can help you. I started hiring people that are way better at construction than I am
Mhm.
because I want smarter people in their trades around me to do to make my company bigger, to really focus on where I want to be at. I don't have to be a know-it-all. And that's the big thing with entrepreneurs. We want to have our fingers in everything. You got to let things go. You have to let it go. You will not grow if you suffocate everybody around you.
So that is a point that I want to make sure we touch on a little bit more. I feel like you're describing almost the death of the ego or like your own ego. So, yes, you want to have your hands in all the things, almost like an octopus. So, you want to release control, and it requires a lot of letting go of your ego and needing things to look a certain way. What has supported you in that process in such a multifaceted industry as construction?
I had to have a lot of mentors, a lot of friends, a lot of colleagues say, "Hey, how are you doing all this? You can't do this. Maybe you should try sleep. It's great." Um, so so I started very slowly letting go in areas, and it's a trial and error thing. You have to train yourself. You really do. I was on the phone with my fractional CFO today. Now, I have a strong aptitude in accounting and finance. I've run $50 million departments before. I know all about it. I'm very particular. So even when I interviewed a CFO, I told them, I said, I'm going to be a pain in your pain in your butt. I really am, because I have things the way I want them done. And they thought, okay, whatever. And then they get into it. They're like, wow, you really know your stuff. And I'm like, I do. But as much as it pains me, and that's the one thing that I absolutely cringe on, and I still have problems with, is letting go of my accounting and trusting that the process is going to work, because the person I hired is highly skilled. He's very, very good at it. His
Mhm.
company's good at this. But to let go of that is painful. It literally, like, right in the gut. To let go of something that's so integral. Everybody loves letting go of their accounting, but I've seen so much fraud happen in it that I'm just paranoid that I'm going to expose myself and then I'm done. I'm gone. Um, but it's slowly trusting somebody else. Get to know them, verify their references, check on their accreditations or skills, slowly let your hand up. But this is the biggest thing for me. Acknowledge that you're uncomfortable. And if you're dealing with a vendor, not that you're uncomfortable with the vendor, but you're uncomfortable with releasing the task, acknowledge that too. And I've told my CFO, I got to let you know, I have an extreme level of anxiety about turning my accounting over to anybody. I said, I know I have to. I can't focus on speaking in public and writing a book and being on podcasts and running a company and doing all this and have time to sit there and go through my trial balance. I can't do it. I have to let somebody go. But I told my vendor, I said, I have anxiety. It's not you, it's me. I promise. But when you acknowledge it, you can put it in a box, you can confront it, and you can start to get rid of it.
How has ceding that control amplified your impact?
Quite a bit, actually. It's given me more free time. Instead of spending a day a week behind the scenes doing the accounting stuff, that's a day a week I have free to go to an extra conference, to go to an extra networking meeting, to host something, to work on the $2.4 million project instead of the $50,000 project. Those kinds of things have really loosened me up and allowed me to get to where I need to be. And it's always a work in progress. With every division of my company, everything I'm doing, it's going to be a work in progress, but it's so much better than where I was 6 months ago, because now I know it's being taken care of by somebody who has the skill set to do it.
Yeah, and folks, if you're listening to this, you might not be in construction, but I guarantee you that there are areas of your life that you can either relinquish control or just ask for support on. It could just be asking your spouse to help with the dishes so that you
Mhm.
can free up a couple extra minutes to get that one-on-one time with your child. Whatever the case may be, what Tommy's describing here is applicable to you. Tommy, I want to make sure we jump right in. The book is coming out on June 1st, but tell us about the launch and what you have planned for folks.
So, just like I'm going to practice what I preach, right? Where you think bigger. Was just going to do a small little get together with some friends just to have fun. June 1st is my 40th birthday. So it's a big, big one for me. And the book launch, was timed specifically for that. So I thought, let's have a small party. And I'm like, no, no, let's do this up. Let's do it bigger. So what was a small little party has turned into a 3-day extravaganza. for my sponsors, I'm actually having sponsors of the event. They get to go to the Florida Aquarium. We're taking them behind the scenes. We're going to go dive in the tank. We're taking a custom
Love it.
chocolate tasting experience. We're going to a 100-year-old restaurant to have dining. We're going to go to the Tampa Club and have a nightcap at the 42nd floor overlooking the entire city at night. On Saturday, June 1st, the main event is going to be a vendor fair, a pitch competitions for other businesses. I've got panelists. I have 12 panelists and 4 moderators right as of right now, including a couple of speakers. And these are community leaders from all over Tampa, from very large companies and some of them international companies that are coming to speak at my summit, the Building Success Summit. We're going to have an open bar. We're having gourmet food trucks, and then we're going to close out the night with a live shadow cast of the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Love it.
And so that's going to be crazy. And then we're not done. On Sunday, we're doing downtown Tampa, a dockside yacht party. And we are doing yacht tours. We're having a cabaret brunch. And for those lucky sponsors, we will do a sunset sail as well. But the tours, I love this. One of the yachts, the stateroom was designed by Versace. They're beautiful, beautiful vessels. So we're not talking your booze cruise kind of thing. They're smaller.
Mhm.
I don't want to say smaller boats. They're almost 100 feet each. But they're not, the barge at Disney World by any means. These are high-end luxury yachts, and it gets people an opportunity to step onto one of those that would never have had the opportunity before. I really want my summit to be motivational for other people to build their own success.
And Tommy, how do people get more information on how to attend, get a ticket, be a part of not only the festivities, but the opportunity to meet others?
So buildingsuccessevent.com. That's buildingsuccessevent.com is the best place to go to find all the information on the panelists, the tickets, sponsorships, vendor opportunities, all of that. To find out more about my book, you can go to that buildingsuccessevent.com. But if you want to connect with me or find a little bit more about me, you can go to tommywhitehead.com. Either one of those websites will get you to the same place if you want it to. And it tells you a lot more about who I am, what I've done, pre-sales on the book, and especially about the Building Success Summit, which is going to be a killer party, but not just a party. It's actually going to be a meaningful networking event where you can have a shared experience with other professionals and make real connections. And that's something I've always excelled at, is making those real connections, not just wine and cheese at an after hours networking event that most of us have been at, but to actually share a common experience of something very unique. And that's what I wanted to do to get people in that entrepreneurial spirit as they're getting exposed to my book.
Yeah. Yeah. And folks, we're going to have all of this information made readily available in the show notes, in the descriptions, wherever you're catching this episode, no matter the platform. So if you are in the Tampa area, but even if you're not, even if you just want to rub shoulders and meet some amazing people, be sure to give Tommy a follow, attend the event, get the book by all means. It is coming out on the 1st. I've already placed the order for my copy. When it comes out, it'll come straight to my Kindle. Tommy, I know we only have a couple of minutes left, but is there anything else that you want to leave the listeners with today?
Absolutely. Everybody's entrepreneurial journey is different. We only read about the Steve Jobs of the world, the Bill Gates of the world, the Zuckerbergers of the world, but Zuckerberg, he was failing college. He was a dropout. All right. You don't really get into the disparities. We all know about Oprah. She went from talk show host to author to owns her entire network now. A woman so wealthy, she has her own network. She grew up in poverty, victims of abuse. She didn't get her real start until 40. So I kind of look at myself as, hey, I'm a year ahead of Oprah. So it's never too late. And I know it sounds cliche, but it is never too late to get started. It's okay to make mistakes. Don't hide from them, own up to them, and seek help. There's nothing shameful for finding people that are doing what you want to do and asking for advice, and finding people that are doing things that you don't want to do and asking them to take over so that you can be the best at what you want to do. You cannot do it by yourself. And if you look at somebody's LinkedIn, their Instagram, it all looks like we're doing it by ourselves. We're not. We are not. have a massive team behind me helping me to showcase what I'm able to do. I would have never been able to do what I was able to do without my team and without my family. So you're okay. You're fine. You're going to get there. You just have to believe in yourself and keep going.
Amen to everything you just said, Tommy. And really, I have one final question I ask every guest, but something I want to ask you. What is the impact you want to have on with your time here on this earth?
So I will tell you, everybody asked me, how did you do it this last year? What motivated you? You went from nothing to running 200 miles an hour. And that was just from 39 to 40. Um, what's next? I'm like, 39 to 40 was a roadmap for my 40s. It was the plan that I laid out for the next decade. My objective in the next decade is to have self-fulfilling companies, self-sufficient companies, so that I can step out of a day-to-day and go and serve on a bunch of nonprofit boards, hopefully small bootstrap nonprofit boards that could never afford me, do that service for free, probably kill myself harder than I would in my for-profit business, and enjoy every moment of my life from 50 all the way until I die at 127. Um, and I want to see other people succeed and help, and I don't see it as a competition because a lot of people can be successful. It doesn't threaten me at all. I'm very comfortable with what I've done and what I can do. But yeah, that my ultimate goal, my ultimate impact is to help a kid sleep better at night so he can grow up to cure cancer. Help a little girl get into science and reseed the coral reefs. I don't know how to do all that, but I'm damn sure going to keep trying.
Oh, so good. So good. Tommy, I get lit up when I hear people's visions. So thank you for indulging me on that one. And I know that you've lit a fire under some of the listeners' butts to get out there and get after their own dreams. So the final question, I do wish we had some more time, but the final question I have for you, I do ask every guest, what are you acknowledging yourself for today?
I made it to 40. Well, not quite. June 1st, I will. But I made it to 40 and I wrote a book, a real book, not a chat GPT little novel, not a disorganized fake whatever, not a couple paragraphs. I wrote an actual book that is over 35,000 words. It's real and it shares my story and it shows my vulnerabilities and it tells other people, hey, this is all the things I did and you could do even better. And that is something I'll have with me forever. And that's incredible for me.
I love that. I love that so much. And folks, again, be sure to get the book. It's available on Amazon. Check it out. I've already ordered it. Be sure to catch it so you have it by June 1st when it comes out. And check out the Building Success Summit if you are able to make it, or even if you want to stretch yourself to get there so that you can be a part of the energy, a part of the launch, and meet some people that are up to big, big things in the world. And folks, as always, this has been another episode of Your Inside Track to Success. I'm your host, Stuart Cranes. We'll be on next week with another amazing guest or message. We'll see you there.